You didn't want to forget your homework in this class, because if you didn't turn it in, you wouldn't get a bad grade or points taken off. She would drag your desk to the front of the room, and you had to face the class instead of the board.
Hi, guys. Hi.
Now that is awkward, because the entire time someone would be sitting there, they would assume everybody they're looking at and that is looking at them is judging them horribly, even if it's not the case. Awkward eye contact, kids just pointing and laughing, whispering. Are they talking about me? I don't know what's going on. Well, the students hated this. If they forgot to do their homework, they would frantically try to fill it in before class started because they didn't want to be in the hot seat, but it worked. That class had the highest homework completion rate in the entire school. So, you tell me, that teacher is a genius, right? This teacher confiscated this one kid's phone during class one day. She walked over, took it, and set it on the corner of her desk. About 20 minutes later, while everybody was working quietly, the teacher stepped out of the room for a second, and the kid saw his chance. He walked up to the front of the classroom like he was throwing away a piece of paper. He secretly grabbed his phone and put it in his hoodie. He then sat down before the teacher came back. A few minutes later, the teacher comes back into the room, looks at her desk, and kind of freezes. She's checking her desk, looking around, lifting up papers, opens every single drawer. Finally, she looks up and says, "Okay, has anybody seen Kyle's phone that I took? It was right here." Oh no, the whole class started looking, even the kid. What? You just took it, ma'am. Everybody was looking under desks, checking behind the bookshelf. At the end of class, they had all finally given up. He acted very sad that his phone was missing. You see, there were no cameras in the classroom. The next day, the teacher came to school with a check written to this kid's parents to buy a new one. And that, my friends, is what I call an evil genius. This kid treated getting to lunch like it was the Olympics. The second the lunch bell rang, he was gone. He'd speed walk through the halls, weave around teachers, and sprint down the stairs because he wanted to be the first kid in line. His friends could never keep up. One afternoon, he came flying down the main staircase, taking 3 steps at a time like a pro. Well, he was moving too fast that at the last few steps, he fell, and he felt bad. The cafeteria doors were right there. Everyone was coming behind him, and they all saw it, pointing at him, laughing. Loser! His own friends walked past him, and one of his friends looked down at him and said, "Bro, if you get up and hurry, you can still be first in line." Well, that awoken something in him, because he got up, and he limped his way to the cafeteria, and somehow he was second in line. Yes! But after school that day, his knee was so swollen, his mom had to take him to the doctor. He was so proud of what he accomplished. But the next day, he took a little bit more time getting to lunch. This kid knew his little brother was going to take the exact same class he was in the next year, and that teacher had a reputation of reusing the same assignments year after year. Well, the older brother kept every single graded worksheet he ever got back, and on the last day of school, he put it all in a manila folder and hid it behind this very old bookcase in the room. Before summer break ended, he told his little brother, "Hey, on the first day, don't tell anybody, but look behind the bookcase in Mrs. Johnson's class." His little bro was like, "Okay, what?" But after class that one day, he reached behind the bookcase and found it. What? For Billy. It was like finding treasure. And it was all in order of first assignment to last assignment. Sure enough, when the first assignment was passed out by the teacher, he looked at the folder. It was the same. And that's when he knew, oh, he hooked me up. He had every single homework worksheet and answer for the entire class. Nobody knew how he was getting such amazing grades on all the homework, but kept failing the tests. Well, doesn't matter because he still passed, and he was forever grateful for his brother. This teacher blamed the same kid for talking all the time, and it didn't matter who it actually was. If she heard a whisper or a mumble, she would immediately look at him and call him out. Well, finally, that kid was tired of it. "I'm freaking tired of it!" So he made himself a promise for an entire week. He wasn't gonna say a single word in that class. He even carried around a notebook so he could write to his classmates instead of talk to them. He didn't want to risk it. Well, on the second day, day, two kids in the back of the class started talking. Teacher turned around and yelled, "Kyle, enough!" The whole room got quiet. Kyle didn't say a word. His classmates knew what was happening. They knew he wasn't talking on purpose, so they were paying attention for the rest of that week. Every time someone talked, they noticed she always blamed Kyle. On Thursday, "Kyle, how many times this week do I have to tell you to stop talking during my lessons?" Well, one kid stood up for him. "Ma'am, he literally hasn't spoken a word all week." "Oh, that is not true." But it was. And then everybody else started explaining to the teacher what's been going on. The teacher looked around and realized, wow, maybe I just have something against Kyle. And she apologized to him. And she never called him out for talking ever again. Way to go, Kai Guy. At this school, there was a kid called the Mayonnaise Bandit. Every couple of days, somebody would grab a railing on the stairs or their locker and their hands would be covered in this slimy goo. It was mayonnaise. Mayonnaise! It was believed to be a one-time prank the first time it happened, but then it happened again and again and again. People were just avoiding the railings. The janitors would clean them every afternoon, but the mayo always came back, and they began checking the cameras. The person that did this was wearing all black. They couldn't see his face, and he would do it at the strangest times, usually very early in the morning. They never knew how he even got into school that early. Months later, they finally caught this kid. And it wasn't because of the cameras or any tips that students gave in. It was because a teacher noticed one of her students unzip his backpack to grab his notebook, and inside, they saw a giant jar of mayonnaise. He was caught mayonnaise-handed, and he was suspended. Gotta respect the bandit. This elementary kid came to school one day with the loosest front teeth. Hi. And he had a huge crush on this one girl. So one day at recess, he runs over to her, smiling. "Look how loose my teeth are." The girl looked at him and said, "Ew, that's gross." The kid was hurt by this, so he stood there for a second, and then he punched himself in the mouth. Both of his front baby teeth fell out, and he held them up to her in his bloody hand. "Is this better?" She screamed and ran away. The recess monitor sent him to the nurse immediately because they had no idea what had happened. The next day, that kid came back to school carrying these two tiny teeth in a bag. Two tiny teeth in a bag? He realized these teeth fit perfectly into a drinking straw. So in the first class of the day, whenever the teacher turned around, he would take these teeth and shoot them at his classmates through a straw, like they were spitballs. Ow! He would then crawl on the floor to pick up the teeth he just spit, and he would do it again, all class period. His teacher kept getting angrier and angrier. She didn't really know what he was doing or that it was his teeth he was spitting, but the angrier she got at him, the crazier he got. And he had to be sent home from school that day, and he was suspended. Talk about another weird kid. There was a kid at this school that got famous for designing lockers. Every weekend, he would go to Five Below, Dollar Tree, or Walmart. He would buy tiny mirrors, magnetic shelves, fake plants, LED light strips, mini rugs, wallpaper, anything that would look cool in a locker. Then his classmates would hire him to completely redesign the inside of their locker. Before he touched anything, he had a series of questions. Do you want modern or a vintage look? You like sports? You want it minimalist? You have a favorite comic book character? What's your favorite color? He would then sketch the layout first in a notebook. Then, that night, he would go through all the stuff that he would have from Five Below, Dollar Tree, Walmart, and he would get together what he needed. Now, he only worked on the weekends. You see, his mom worked at the school, and there were events that would happen at the school during the weekends, so he was allowed to go in. And that's when he would design their locker. By Monday, the kids would come in, go to their locker, and it was completely redone. Beautiful. It wasn't free at all. You had to pay him money, 20, sometimes 50 bucks, depending on what you wanted. This business was so respected and well known, some parents would even contact him to surprise their kids with a redesigned locker. One year, the school held a best decorated locker contest, and he didn't enter, but out of the top 10 lockers, he designed 8 of them. What a legend! You gotta respect the hustle.